Hi, this video is going to be a exploratory opportunity. It will be offering some entry points into exploring, experimenting with your own mobility and alignment in a few asana, yoga movement postures. Um, I'm going to keep those mostly within the Warrior One, Warrior Two, and some lunge variations, just for the sake of being able to reiterate a few different times our pelvis and sacrum alignment in some of these different shapes, how we're engaging with our groins and our inner thigh muscles, how we are opening up and relating wrist and shoulder mobility, ankle mobility, knee engagement, all of those things. So as I go through each of these different shapes, um, I'm gonna take my time with them. I'll explain and demonstrate where I am trying to get some different engagement, where I'm experimenting with how it feels in today's body for me, offer some suggestions that you might want to explore for yourself, and then also build up some strength at the same time. So sometimes when we do some of these longer held poses, we tend to want to not engage quite so long because our mind is telling our body something that maybe is a little uncomfortable. Also, because I'm focusing specifically on asana and movement with this, I will be cueing the breath, but we will not be diving too deeply into any of the other limbs of yoga with this. This will be pretty focused on asana. Um, just ensure that as you're moving through the shapes, that breath is the primary focus, increasing that capacity within the canister for the lungs, that we're releasing tension out of the body. Like all of those things are going to be primary. So I am not choosing to use a mat today for my space. I'm just going to be on the floor. I have a couple different props already prepared. I have a strap, and then I also am going to be using kind of a mini bolster type thing at the end. If I also am going to have a block handy. So if you have anything that you can use similarly, grab that. And if you want to use a mat, you're welcome to. So come on. I'm going to have my centering position. I'm going to choose today to be seated. I am going to use the block for that. And I'm going to choose cross-legged. So for you, if it feels better to be directly on the floor, if you want to lie down on your back, lie on your belly, whatever works for you, totally great. And notice what you notice. So come into it. Make any wiggles, adjust as you need. This is not something that once you get into the position, if you notice after a few seconds or a minute or so that it really isn't the best thing, holding that for the sake of trying to be still and centered while you're building tension in the physical body is defeating the purpose. So please feel free to wiggle, move, adjust as needed. I'm going to choose to close my eyes. If you would rather just drop your gaze down towards the floor, it's completely fine. And start with reacclimating yourself to your breath. For right now, all it is noticing that you are actually breathing. For some of us, this may be the first time today. Not necessarily doing anything to change the breath. Often when we bring our awareness to the breath, we automatically start to slow it down or deepen it. If that's your experience, that's great. If not, totally fine. And then take a quick assessment physically again. Are you noticing that perhaps maybe parts of the body are beginning to release, relax a little bit? Are there parts of the body still holding quite a bit of tension or soreness? If so, that's data. Store that away so that as you move through some of these different positions, you can work graciously with today's body. And then also notice your mind, condition, not judging anything as good or bad, right or wrong. Again, it's purely data. Notice how the physical sensations and the physical experience, along with the breath capacity and the breath experience, and the mind and its state, how each of them are informing your energy. Take another 3 cycles of inhales and exhales at your pace, which may be faster or slower than my pace. Totally fine. You are solely focused on inhales flowing into exhales, flowing into inhales for 3 cycles. And now if the eyes have been closed, gently blink them open. I chose sitting in a cross-legged position. Since I've been in this position for a few minutes, I'm going to switch which leg is in front and on top, just to give the hips a little bit more ability to possibly even out. And before we get started on any specific movement, so as I stated, I am sitting on a block. And what happens when you sit on a block, if you have access to something, doesn't have to be a yoga block, but something that gives you a little bit of height underneath the sits bones, is then automatically my knees are going to drop a little bit below my hips. When that happens, it's giving me a little bit more space along the length of my spine so that the low back, mid back can all come into its natural arches. So we will be using some of those cues as we move through the different shapes. I will be focusing primarily today on a lot of quad, uh, hip flexor, psoas opening, as well as quad muscle strengthening, and then quite a bit around the chest and opening the fronts of the shoulders. So those will be kind of the 2 primary focal points today. I'm going to start though with our smallest digits. So wiggling fingers and toes, you can't necessarily see, but I am wiggling my toes. Just this idea that the movement is going to release synovial fluid, and we want all of the joints starting from the smallest digits, smallest joints, all the way up to the larger joints of the shoulders and the hips to be able to move a little bit more easily. So from there, then I'm going to do a little bit of wrist and shoulder mobility together. So bringing the palms together in front of you and then holding the palms, maybe fingertips right about chin level, perhaps, so that the elbows can lift up away from the rib cage. I don't have the elbows up as high as my shoulders because in my body, as soon as I do that, my shoulders start to hunch up. If your body has a different alignment and it works well for you to bring the shoulders all the way, great. Otherwise, keep the shoulders slightly at a decline away from, keep the elbows at a decline from the shoulders. And then you're just going to put some light pressure into the palms. From there, using your breath, inhaling and exhaling flow to start to point the fingers away from you. You're going to notice when your joints are saying, that's far enough, I don't want to go any further. Even if my body is demonstrating something different, you're going to listen to your body. So fingertips are pointing away, maybe down a little bit, and then inhale, bringing those fingertips back up. And now I'm going to point them in towards me. I'm just going to breathe with my movement, doing that 2 more times. And notice what I'm feeling in the shoulders as I'm doing it, keeping the shoulder blades invited to stay down towards the back waist. This will be my last time through. And then towards me, release that, circle out the wrists, roll out the shoulders. You can do them simultaneously if that feels good for you. You're going to roll one direction and then the other with both wrists and shoulders. Shake out the arms. Shifting to feet and ankles. So I'm going to roll forward. If you want to swing your legs around to one side, or if you've already been down on your back and you need to come up to seated, however you need to transition, I'm going to roll off the block and come to a tabletop position. So I have my toes tucked into the floor, heels are up. Keeping weight forward in my hands, and for you, you're going to keep as much weight forward off your feet as you need to. As you start to shift weight back, notice the sensation in the bottoms of the feet. If you need to get those little baby pinky toes to flip out too, you can use your fingers to encourage them to do so. If you don't feel like there's so much sensation that you aren't going to be able to keep your breath flowing, maybe you come up off the floor a little bit, maybe you come all the way up to a seat on your heels. So in this position, we have opening of the bottom of the feet where there's a lot of nerve endings. We also have weight on our heels, which is giving us some compression in the ankle. So we're already starting to wake the ankles up a little bit and wake up the toes, because as we move through these different standing positions, our toes are going to be really integral, especially when we get to balancing. From here, hold and breathe, coming off of it, taking a break whenever it is appropriate for you to do so, and then come back forward. I'm going to show a variation as I do that one more time. So I have my block handy. One way that you can come back to seated is I'm going to start with block in its highest. So this is low, this is medium, this is high, in its highest position. And then I'm going to tuck it back behind so it's mostly in between my feet, and I can land my tailbone down on it. Now I'm going to come back, and I don't really have much pressure on my heels, but I still am getting that toe crunch area, and I'm opening up the bottoms of my feet. So that's one way to try it. For you, if it's better to bring it to that medium height, and then you still have a little bit of support at the tailbone, depending on your alignment of your bone structure, but little less on the feet. So play around with those variations as well. All right, now coming back forward, you're going to untuck the toes. So now the shoelace side of the foot is down. Ease back. Put your weight on the heels again. Notice what you notice. So this one generally tends to be a little less sensation in the bottoms of the feet and the toes, but for some folks, opening up the front of the ankle can be a lot of sensation. So keep the breath flowing, take a break when you need to. And again, for this one, perhaps block either at medium or at low, tucking it back between the feet, and then using the block again can give you a similar shape without as much sensation. Breath is constantly flowing as you move through all of these. Now, I'm going to hang out here for a minute. If this is too much sensation for you, you're going to come into a different variation of a seated position. And if you don't have the block underneath you and you're feeling great, stay there. So you've got something that you can use as a strap. That could be a soft scarf, a soft belt. It could be a necktie, anything that you can use as a strap. We're going to start with first taking the strap in the right hand. I'm going to just bring that right arm up. I'm going to encourage my right shoulder blade to tuck down into its back waistline, and then Drop the hand towards the back of my skull so the elbow's pointing up to the ceiling. Now my left hand, I'm going to reach it back around behind. I'm going to find that strap, get it with my left hand, and then I'm going to use the left hand and maybe inch the hand up the strap a little bit until I can find a good leverage point to encourage the right hand to come down towards the back of the skull and the right elbow to lengthen up towards the ceiling a little bit more. If you do not need the strap and you're feeling not much sensation that way, bring the fingertips together, hook the fingers, and then lengthen the right elbow up to the ceiling, encourage right shoulder blade down into the back waist, and feel the opening in the shoulder and the tricep on the right side. If you want one more variation of this, inhaling to prepare, you're exhaling, you're just going to do a little bit of a side bend over towards the left. And then inhale and reach up. Release that, roll out the right shoulder. Now you're going to grab that strap, left hand, same thing, left arm's reaching up. You're going to keep that left elbow steady as you bring the left hand back down behind the skull so that now the left elbow is up. Right arm is going to wrap back around behind you, get the strap. Notice as you do this, get the data for yourself. Generally, one shoulder, one side is going to feel a little bit looser or more spaciousness than the other side. So for me, that tends to be the first side that I tried. When my right arm is up, my left arm has a little bit more mobility to wrap around behind. When my left arm is up, my right arm has a little less mobility. So you'll notice as I bring my fingertips together, yes, they'll touch, but it's a little less space than on the other side. This isn't good or bad, it's just data. So I can use the strap then on this side and get a similar opening. Take an inhale to prepare, and if I want, I can exhale to the right side, get a little bit of a side bend going here. And for you, it might be the opposite side. Inhale, lift up, release the strap, roll out the shoulders. I'm going to put the strap off to the side for later. I'm going to come back to tabletop, taking your time, especially since we've been in that supported heroes or whichever position you were in for quite a while. So now tabletop again, and you're going to have palms so that your fingers are nice and wide like a starfish, and then you're making what is the shape of a suction cup right at the center of your palm. This is going to then make it so that the base knuckle of each finger and the base of the palm are where you're going to be carrying the majority of the weight. You want that weight to be coming more up into the base of these knuckles than what we normally would do, in order so that we are not having all of the weight dumped down into the wrist. Shoulders stacking over those wrists, and hips stacking over the knees. From here, just starting to do some little bit of circles, and you're going to notice slightly different wrist opening mobility work with this shape. I'm going to do 2 or 3 cycles the one direction, and then I'm going to reverse it, go the other direction. If this is too much pressure on the knees, pad the knees, or come back to that first wrist opening mobility exercise that we did with the elbows out high. All right, and holding here, keeping it steady. I'm going to take an inhale to prepare. As I do, I'm going to let my belly sway down to the ground, lift my chin, lift my tail. Exhale, I'm going to push the floor away as I tuck the chin, tuck the tail, round the middle back up to the ceiling. So this is another one where you're going to be very conscious of tying the breath to the movement. Inhaling into the sway back, which is cow. Exhaling into the rounded back, which is cat. You'll do 2 more of those, your pace. Doesn't matter, again, if it's faster or slower than me. All right, and then coming back to center or that neutral spine where you have the natural curves of the spine happening. Taking an inhale, you're going to extend the right leg back behind you. I'm going to keep my toes on the ground. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure into the palms so that I can press that right heel back behind me. So getting a calf stretch, again, this is incorporating that ankle space. If you need a bit more challenge for yourself and you want to bring some core work in, this is purely optional. All of this is purely optional, obviously. You're going to take an inhale, press into the ball of that right foot, float up the left knee. Just for a second, half second, 2 seconds, whatever works for you. When you're ready, your exhale will lower it down. Now, inhale, float the right leg up. And then, next inhale, extend the left arm long. So now, trying to feel the sensation of keeping that pelvis level. Sometimes when we lift that right leg, we're opening the right hip out to the side just to get some height in the leg. Try to keep the pelvis level, even if there's a little less height in the leg. One more breath here. Exhale, release. Lower everything down to the ground. Take a breath. Notice what you feel. Same thing, other side. Left leg, toes down, extend it back. Press into the ball of the foot. Press into the hands. Feel what you feel along the back of the left leg. For some folks, you might feel it all the way into the hamstring. If you are feeling sensation in the low back that is telling you that this is too much pressure or too building tension, back off. If you want to bring in that little bit of core activation, inhale, float the right knee. Exhale, release. Inhale, left leg floats. Pelvis, you want to be able to put a glass of water right there at the sacrum and have it stay steady. Think about that. And then inhale, extend out. Again, maybe it's just the right arm extending or just the left leg extending instead of both of them at the same time. And then exhale, release, drop the hand, drop the knee. I'm going to come into a standing position. I'm going to offer a few different ways to get there. For some folks, you're going to want to come up to a stand on your knees, step one leg forward, doesn't matter which one, push into that front knee and lift up. For other folks, standing on the knee is not going to be a good variation. So for you, if it's better to use a little bit more weight in the hands, float the knees up and then start to kind of slide the feet forward and come up to a stand, that's an option. Otherwise, for other folks, if you want a little bit of a challenge, another option can be starting to walk those hands back, tip yourself onto your balls of your feet, or if it's available, maybe you come all the way to the heels or to the flat feet, and then use your core strength, lift yourself all the way up to a stand. So if you want to come up to a standing the other way, then those three options, you do you. We're going to work through Tadasana. I'm going to take my time with this one. Bear with me. We're going to start with the feet. So I have opted to use no mat because I wanted to be able to visually see. I happen to be on a hardwood floor and be able to see the lines in the floor. If you have lines on your mat that you can align with, you're going to use that. Or if you have any sort of tile floor or hardwood floor, anything where you can start to visually see. If you don't have access to anything like that, I'm going to give you another little life hack. So you're going to want to have ideally 2 blocks. But let me start with this first. I'm going to find the front top of my hip bones. So you can see where my hands are. I have my hip bones. Now I'm going to pretend like I have a string coming from my middle finger, and I'm going to draw it all the way down until that string lands straight at the center of my ankle. So I could tell right away that if my hip bone is here, I was in a little narrow for my foot. So I needed to slide it out a little bit. Now on this side, Since I adjusted this foot, this side's all ready. Front center of the top of the hip is center in front of the ankle. Now, I have my lines on my floor. So my pinky, outside of my pinky toe, is right at the edge of one line. I have my heel slightly inside, maybe about half a centimeter. I'm just going to lift up the heel, tilt it out a little bit. So now the entire outer arch from the top of the pinky to the outside of the heel is all along that line. You can see, perhaps, hopefully the light's good enough, that it almost looks like I'm a tiny bit pigeon-toed. Okay? Going to do the same thing on this side. Now, when I look down on this side, I've got my pinky toe right there on the line. My heel, actually on this side, needs to come in just a little bit. And there. Now I'm standing equal weight in both feet. And both feet, the outer arch is aligned with those lines. Now, if you have no access to lines whatsoever, you're going to take a block. Once you get your hip and ankle alignment, you're going to take that block, you're going to line it up with your pinky toe like I did, and then once that is in line with your pinky toe, rather than angling the block to match your heel, you're going to keep the block in a straight line parallel to the foot, and you're going to bring that heel out to match the block. So 2 blocks, 1 on each side, do that same thing. All right, so that took quite a while even to get our feet established. From there, lift up your toes. Give them a little bit of a wiggle. Weight now in your feet is going to primarily be big toe ball mound, baby toe ball mound. And then some folks say outside and inside of the ankle or the heel. I say the center of the heel. You can play around with it, see what feels good for you, but you want the weight to not be up in the toes as much. When we have our toes down and our toes curled into the floor and a lot of tension in our feet, that go, 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 the sympathetic nervous system, in this case, we're going to lift those toes, move the weight back a bit. When we move that weight back a little bit, right away, you'll probably notice a little bit more engagement in the fronts of the thighs. Okay? This is what we're wanting. You're wanting to stack knees over ankles, hips over thighs. Then from there, find the inside of each knee bone, your patella. Find that inside where you can start to feel the start of the muscle where you can, like if you clench your muscle, you can feel that engagement. You're going to push your fingers there. And then you're going to invite the energy to spiral out to the outside of the hip bones. When you do that, you're bringing the patella up a little bit. We're not clenching the muscle now. We're just bringing engagement energetically from the inside of the knee up to the outside of the hip. So we get a little bit more thigh engagement. When I do that, I'm going to naturally have a little bit more weight in my tailbone without curling my tail under. I'm not trying to tuck my tailbone. I'm just trying to make that tailbone a little bit heavier. And when I bring this outward spiral, it naturally happens without tucking the tailbone. I want to keep that natural lumbar spine. Stacking shoulders over hips. When I do that, there's a lot of times our posture will automatically then start to come into more of a sway back. So rather than tucking the tail, now the tailbone is getting too much of an extension. To support that low back and to circumvent that, I'm going to take my thumb tip, I'm going to find the bottom front rib. Then I'm going to take my fingertips, find the top of my pelvis. I'm going to encourage those two to touch. Our skeletons won't allow it, but I'm going to bring some light engagement across the front of my abdomen so that I can encourage the bottom front ribs to tuck down and in. So that now, with my tailbone a little bit more heavier towards the ground without tucking it, I'm also not over hyperextending my low back. Across the front of the chest, shoulders are open, collarbones are open, palms are open. Crown of the head is reaching for the ceiling. Chin is parallel to the floor. Notice what you feel. Breathe here. Release, shake it out. All right, if you need to adjust your feet just so you're not building tension in the body, do so. Otherwise, if this is okay for you, go ahead and keep it so that you can build up that muscle memory. You're going to take an inhale to prepare. As you exhale, bring your chin to the right shoulder. Look over that right shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, take it to the left. You're just noticing how far can I see behind me without forcing it. Inhale back to center. Bring your gaze to the middle tip of the middle finger on the right hand. You're going to circle that right arm up, top, back, and down, keeping the gaze on the middle fingertip the entire time. This is the second circle. We're going to do one more, circling the arm to the front. And then take it to the back. Letting the breath flow with the arm movement. So inhaling as the arm moves up, exhaling as the arm moves down. Last time. And drop the arm down. Switch the gaze to the middle left finger. Inhale, arm up, back, down. Inhale, front, up, back, down. Last time to the front. And then reverse it. Back, up, front, down. Inhale up, exhale down. Last one. Bring it down, shake out the arms. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, chin over to the right. Notice how far you can see now. Inhale back to center. Exhale to the left. Inhale back to center. Release, shake out the shoulders. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, soft bend in the knees. You're going to bring yourself forward. You're going to see my knees are really quite soft as I come forward into a forward fold. If you have a block handy, you can put the hands at whatever level on the block that you want. I'm still keeping my knees soft. I don't have them locked out. If you prefer, hands can be at the tops of the thighs or shins, or if it's available, hands to the floor. Now, I'm thinking about letting my head just hang heavy, releasing tension out of the back of the neck. You can let the arms hang heavy. If you want to even come to a sway side to side and do a little ragdoll, you can. 1 or 2 breaths this way, switching the arms. And then eventually, hands are going to come to the fronts of the shins or tops of the thighs. You're going to extend that spine, lengthening long, halfway lift. Exhale, drop down into forward fold. Bigger bend in the knees now. I'm going to take my hands to the floor, stepping my feet back behind me. Now, your choice. You can have knees up or knees down. Either way, if you'll notice, if my knees are up, I have a long line of energy from my heels that is staying in a line past my knees, past my hips, to my shoulders, and out the crown of my head. If I drop my knees, same thing. From my knees, past my hips, past my shoulders, out the crown of my head. That same long line of energy. So the point is if knees are down or knees are up, you're trying to avoid this type of thing, you're trying to avoid this type of thing, and then specifically, if you look at my shoulders, you're trying to not like hunch the shoulders, bring those shoulder blades down towards the back waist. Think about all the engagement we just covered in Tadasana. You are thinking about that engagement across the fronts of the thighs. So imagine that your femur is getting a nice hug from the thigh muscles. Your front bottom rib on each side is trying to touch the top of the pelvis on each side. One more breath. Exhale, you're going to shift forward slightly. So again, knees down or knees up, it doesn't matter. You're going to squeeze the elbows into the rib cage, lower all the way down to the floor. Hands are going to come so that they are either fingertips right under the shoulders or slightly back, so the palms are more towards the rib cage. And then inhale, baby cobra, little baby back bend. Exhale to release. Your inhale is going to push the floor away from you. So that can be coming up into a full plank or knees down plank. And then your exhale, toes are tucked into the floor, is going to lift your hips, coming into an upside down letter V. So this is our downward facing dog. Your hands are still in those wide starfish. You still have the suction cup happening in the middle of your palm. So more weight towards the base knuckle of each finger than what you probably would imagine, taking some pressure off the wrists. Shoulder blades. We're not punching the shoulders up into the ears here. We're moving those shoulder blades so that they are broad across the back, thinking like you're going to spread butterfly wings out your shoulder blades to the sides. And then you can't really see it in the pants that I have on right now, but you are going to want to bring significant bend to the knees. When you bend the knees, you gain more control over the pelvis, so you can really lift those sits bones up towards the ceiling. If you choose to walk your dog, alternate each heel, that might be helpful to eventually then have a little bit more spaciousness so you can melt the heels towards the floor. It doesn't mean they're going to touch the floor necessarily. Also, we tend to come up from plank with our feet back a good 6 to 8 inches and try to come into down dog from there. And for many of us, it's not a good fit. So feel free to always come up from that plank, slide the toes forward a little bit, get a little bit more spaciousness in the spine. And then inhale, gaze towards the hands. You're going to step your feet forward and come back with the feet towards the hands, forward fold. Inhale, hands to shins, half lift. Exhale and fold. Now we're going to come into what is called chair pose. For me, when I practice chair pose, I really notice that I do a little bit better if I have my feet closer together. I have noticed that I have one leg stronger than the other, and when I have my feet separate, the stronger leg likes to take over. If I bring my feet closer together, I get a little bit better engagement from both legs. Other thing, if you've got your block handy, if you have a block and you have it handy, go ahead, stick it the long direction in between your inner thighs. And then now with that, I am going to bring my feet out just a little bit wide so that I don't have too much of an angle on my knee with my feet close together and then my knees kind of coming out. So this way I have my feet still narrow, but not quite as narrow. Now, I am going to think about first, before I have any other movement, I'm going to think about bottom front rib pulling towards the top of the pelvis. So front ribs tucking down and in. I am not tucking my tail. I'm not coming into a rounded low back. I am keeping my tailbone heavy with that front core engagement, lengthen spine, and I might just stay here. I'm already starting to feel some engagement in my quadriceps, feeling some warmth building up. That might be good enough for today. If you want to go further, you're just going to sit down into that chair back behind you. Hands don't need to be part of this at all. You can have hands at the hips. You can have hands at the heart center. Maybe arms reach out from the shoulders as if you're serving gratitude towards somebody. Or if you want, arms can come up alongside the ears. Breathe. Keep the breath flowing. Once you need a break, you take a break, come back in when you want. We're going to take about 2 more breaths here, or be done now. And then inhale, lengthen, remove the block if you're using it. Exhale into forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, knees bent, Bring those hands down. You're going to keep the right foot where it is. You're going to step the left foot back behind you. So this is low lunge. If you have blocks, or at least one block, you may want to put the block, I'm going to drop my back knee. You can keep it on or off. It's up to you. Put a block underneath your hands. That's going to raise the floor. It will allow for a little bit more length along the spine, which is almost always, it's a generality, but almost always we're looking for length in the spine so we can increase capacity of the canister around the lungs, right? And also increase capacity for the flow of energy along the nervous system. If your back knee is not dropped, go ahead, do that. I'm going to pivot so I'm orienting a little different direction. So when I come into my low lunge, a couple things generally in my body that happen that you might want to be aware of. For me, I have my right foot forward. If I'm coming into low lunge, if I want to really get a big long extension into that and I draw my hands down, this orientation doesn't show up very well either. So a lot of times for me, what happens is my right hip will like to sass out to the right side. If you notice that that's what's happening for you, generally what I'm doing here is I'm really feeling a lot of opening in that right hip, right? But at the same time, my pelvis and sacrum are getting a lot of pressure in kind of a wonky position. So for me, it's better. I've learned how my body works. You can explore this for yourself. It's better if I'm going to keep this front knee at that 90-degree angle. So knee is generally right above the ankle. And I want that back knee back quite a ways so I start to get an opening along my psoas and hip flexor muscle in the front of the left thigh. As I'm doing that, I bring my hands up to the thigh, right thigh to start, and then just give it a little encouragement of that right hip to maybe stay towards midline a little bit more. Ease back into it, and as I ease back into it, I'm pretending like my groins, my inner thighs are scissors. So I'm pulling forward energetically with my left knee as much as I'm pulling back with my right ankle. So I might not get quite as deep, but I have a little bit more integrity across my low back and pelvis area, which for my body works a little bit better long term. And then if I want to release my hands to the floor, I can, but I'm going to encourage my sternum to stay reaching towards the wall in front of me. One more breath. Exhale, shift the hips back, coming into half splits. So with half splits, I'm going to lengthen my front leg. Some folks like to drop their hips all the way down towards the left heel. I'm going to keep my hips lifted for this variation. My right knee is going to be long. My right leg is long, but my right knee is not locked out. I tend to feel a little bit more sensation for my body if I keep my toes lifted. Some folks like to have the toes down. Play around with it, see what works best. Drawing the attention again back to what's happening between the left and right inner thigh, the right hip and the left hip. So again, often what will happen as we come into this half splits, you can have the blocks pulled back here with you so you have a little bit more lift and spaciousness, if that's better for you. But a lot of times what will happen now in half splits is now the right hip kind of wants to tuck down and in. Instead, I'm going to encourage that right hip to stay up and maybe a little back so that I can keep, again, if I had a water glass there on my sacrum, it wouldn't be tipping to the right or left. Same thing, inner thighs are going to be slightly engaged towards each other. Last breath here. Inhale, I'm going to walk forward and move the block out of my way. And I'm going to transition now into Virabhadrasana 1. So I'm going to bring my weight, my right foot down. I'm going to tuck my back toes in, float the back knee, and then I'm going to turn my left toes out at an angle. For me, generally my toes are pointing at about 10 o'clock on a clock face. You can play around with what is a good alignment for you. I'm going to slide back a little bit to hopefully get my right foot into the camera. Here we go. So front of the right ankle. If you start to if you lift up your toes, you'll feel that engagement across the front center of the ankle. Keeping the toes soft on the ground, can you bring a little bit more of that engagement naturally into the front of the ankle there, building up again some ankle strength. You're going to bend forward into that front knee as much as is appropriate for you, building up some strength in this front leg, while at the same time, you're graciously, gently, patiently inviting your hip bones to orient mostly towards the front. Now, for most of us, the hips are still going to be slightly off at an angle towards the left. For some of us, maybe a lot of an angle. Again, you play around, see what works better for you. As I'm coming into the pose, what I'm attempting to do is have equal weight in both the right and left foot. And to do that, I'm also engaging that same area across the front of the left ankle. And then, can't see it super great, that orientation. Let me try it this way. And then I'm going to bring my fingers back here, right here along the knee. I'm going to just start to feel around a little bit, see what I feel for some muscle engagement there. If I'm not really feeling much muscle engagement at all, outside, inside, front of that left knee, I'm going to give it just a little bit of engagement, not clenching my muscles, giving a little bit of engagement so that that knee is supported, not just kind of hanging out there, not doing much. Again, I haven't done anything with my arms yet. If you want to, you can reach arms up. Hands can be out the hips the whole time. You can reach the arms up. If you're reaching the arms up, you're orienting your sternum about the same direction as your hips, and your shoulder blades are melting away from the ears. Inhale, and now as you exhale, extend that front leg long. So both legs are extended long. I still have this wide stance. For my body, I'm going to come into pyramid pose. I know I need to move that left foot forward a good 6 inches or so, generally for me. Right toes are pointing towards the top. If you're on a mat, they would be pointing at the top edge of your mat. Left toes are still angled out at about, for me, 10 o'clock on a clock face. Hands are going to be on the hips. Now, in this case, I'm encouraging my right hip to stay. I'm encouraging my pelvis to stay, again, in its natural alignment to the sacrum, instead of, as we come forward, hinging forward from the hip, keeping that sternum lengthened towards the toes rather than dropping the spine and kind of crushing the lungs, keeping the sternum lengthened to start. I'm going to pause here. Now I'm about halfway lift type position. My front knee is not locked. Hands are on the hips. And as I do this, you'll notice with my hands on my hips, hopefully, that again, trying to keep that sacrum so that a glass of water wouldn't tip. For me, often what will happen is as I come into it, I'm letting that left hip kind of open up to the side, and then that glass of water would tip off to the right. So instead, bringing that right hip, encouraging it a little bit more up and back, left hip to stay a little bit more down in front. Hands can come to the thigh, maybe to the shin, maybe to the floor, maybe to the blocks. You choose. Last breath here. Inhale, lift. Your next transition, all you're going to do, lift your back heel and maybe step it back a half a step or so. So high lunge. We did low lunge. Now we're going to do high lunge, and we're going to focus again a lot on that quad strength. So for our high lunge, there's a lot of different variations. For this one today, what we are going to consider is, as I drop into this front knee, can I also drop the back knee? So I don't necessarily in my body have a 90 degree with my knee angle, but I'm dropping that front knee down, opening up again, front of the left hip. Hands can be at the hips, hands can be at the heart, hands can be up in the sky. You do what you want with the arms. Your engagement across the front of that right ankle, think about that again, really engaging those ankles, the muscles around the ankles to help create that stability, not just dumping all of your weight into your foot, but actually building up a chain of energy through the muscle engagement up the spine. Last breath here. Inhale, lift. Now, you're going to pivot to face, if you're on a mat, you're going to be facing the long edge of the mat with your right toes pointing to the top. Your left foot, back edge of the foot is going to be mostly parallel to the back edge of the mat, or maybe toes slightly up towards the front. Often you'll hear the cue, heel to inner arch alignment. We're coming into Virabhadrasana 2. If that works for you, perfect. If it does not work for you, find what orientation for your feet works best in your body. Because we have this wide stance and I'm facing the camera, my hips are now, if I were on a mat, facing the long edge of the mat. May or may not be your case. That's generally where we're inviting them towards. We're not forcing it. And then as you exhale, bend into that front knee. Drop it down so that as you move into your lunge, your knee is tracking towards your baby toe, or at least as you look at your toes, you're not seeing baby toe, fourth toe, third toe, but you can see your big toe. If your knee is dropping in, switch up my orientation a little bit for the camera. If your knee is dropping in like so, that's really difficult alignment for the hip and knee. So we're encouraging that knee out to the outer side of the foot. And then, again, tailbone. Tailbone is weighted down towards the center. So sometimes for some folks, it might be easier or just more naturally, maybe I shouldn't say easier, just in a more natural fit, for as they come into this lunge to be doing something like so. So come back up. When you bend into the knee, tailbone is dropping straight down, shoulders coming straight down. Engagement across the front of both ankles. Engagement around this front knee. Now, take your fingers, touch outer side just above the knee, right at the start of the thigh. Feel that engagement of that muscle, maybe even notice to make sure it is engaged. And then if you want to extend the arms long, do so, but keep the shoulder blades down and away from the ears, and gaze can come over the front middle finger. Exhale, extend. You're going to step forward. I'm going to switch my orientation again. You're going to step forward with that left foot to land it next to the right. I'm going to bring my block with me. So now the left toes are down, heel is up. You can turn so that the left heel lands at the inside of the right ankle. If you want to hang out here, this is your stopping place. If you want to use your block, you can do similar where the block then lifts those toes up and then you're bringing the heel to the inner calf. And you can have the block at whatever height you want. Now, my left thigh is going to externally rotate so that the knee is out to the left side. As I do that, if I notice that I'm starting to turn in my torso to meet that, I'm just going to invite my torso back to center. If you don't want the block, if you don't want the foot on the floor, you can bring the foot to the inner calf or to the inner thigh if that works well for your body. Now think about that stacking motion that we did in Tadasana when we took all that time to align our feet and then the joints all the way up. You want a similar alignment here because that line of energy, that grounding energy is going to help you to hold balance. Balance is so much about this energetic connection from earth up to our midsection, and then midsection connection up out into the universe, out through the crown of the head. So all of my joints need to be stacked to keep that connection flowing. That's one point. Another point, core engagement. When we have a bit more core engagement, so those bottom front ribs tucking down to the top of the pelvis again, that's going to also help our stability and balance poses. Last 2 points. Point number 3, breath. Often when we go into what we perceive as a more difficult, physically challenging position, especially if it's a balance, we like to hold our breath or our breath becomes shallow. In either of those cases, we raise the center of our gravity. If we can keep our focus on keeping the breath flowing and eased and those longer lengthened breaths, we're going to keep our center of gravity a little bit lower. It makes it easier for balance. And then the last thing is your gaze. So you can gaze straight out in front of you at something that's not moving. That tends to be a little bit more stabilizing than looking down because our body wants to follow where our eyes go. But if you don't have something right out in front of you that's not moving, that's a good focal point. Find something a good 10, 12 feet out from you. Or if this is not challenging at all, look up to where the wall meets the ceiling, look up above you, close one eye, close the other eye, close both eyes. Whatever you want with the hands. Exhale, release it down. All right, we're going to go through all those same shapes on the other side. We're probably going to move a little bit faster, which isn't great because you do want the same amount of muscle engagement and strength building side to side as much as is possible, but I'm not going to have quite as much cueing this time. So starting with that Tadasana. So we're not going to go into it quite as in depth as we did the first time, but try to imagine again, getting those feet lined up on the lines, stacking knees over ankles, hips over knees, shoulders over hips, crown of the head reaching to the ceiling, collarbones open, fronts of the arms open, shoulders down and back. Take 1 to 2 breaths here. Inhale, lift the arms, take a breath in. Exhale, soft bend in the knees, forward fold, let it hang. Inhale, half lift, extend the spine. Exhale, you're going to drop the hands to the floor, deep bend in the knees, step back into either knees down or knees up, plank, either one. Main points, you're keeping that body in a straight line. Number 2, top of the pelvis, bottom front ribs, energetically engaged. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, shift the shoulders forward slightly, squeeze the elbows in, lower yourself all the way down. If you want to repeat that low cobra, you're going to do that. If you would like to have a little bit more back extension this time, you're going to bring the hands underneath the shoulders or back towards the rib cage. Start to lift up. You're going to pause when your body says enough. Now, one thing with this, we haven't come into this position yet, so I'm going to talk on this a little bit. So often when we come up into this higher back extension, this is what's happening. We become a turtle head. Lower those shoulder blades down towards the back waist, broaden across the front chest. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, you're going to push the floor away from you any way that makes sense, either knees down or knees up, plank. Exhale, into down dog. And you can either walk your dog again this time or come right into heels floating towards the floor. If you didn't remember to already, I invite you to take that little bit of a slide forward with each foot. And then as much bend in the knee as is good for you to lift those sits bones up towards the ceiling. One more breath here. Gaze to the hands. Step or walk. Bringing the feet to the hands. If you want to use the block again, you can. We're going to go into chair pose one more time. I am going to choose to not use the block this time. So this time I am going to have my feet a little bit closer together. Just my choice because it works better for my body, as I said. Lowering down any amount. When I lower down, a couple other points with this one. When I lower down, I already talked about keeping that tailbone weighted. But if I'm looking at my knees, I want to be able to see the tips of my toes shining around. If I'm way, way forward with that, it's a lot of torque on both the ankle and the knee, and a little bit more on the back. If it works in your body, great. For most of us, it's not the greatest alignment. So shifting back, take another inhale here. As you exhale, you're going to forward fold. Inhale, half lift. And then next exhale, your left foot is going to stay where it is. Your right foot's going to step back and come into that low lunge. You can have knee off the ground or knee drop down to the ground, your choice. If you're going to give yourself a little bit of time to experiment with that hip and pelvis position, on this side because we are almost never going to be symmetrical from side to side. So just having the time to experiment with that on this side, generally it's going to be a little bit more accessible if the knee is down, but you can play around with it and see what it's like for you. Block can be handy, again, lifting the torso a little bit so you get a little bit more length in the spine. And noticing if that left hip is sassing out to the side, what to do. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, shift weight back, extend the front leg long, heel down, toes up. Same thing again. You're going to encourage that right hip to not sass way out and open to the right side, just to get a little extra length in the left leg. Instead, trying to keep that low back pelvis area parallel. Always, 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 this front knee is as soft and as bent as is best for your sensation level. And then inhale, float forward, drop that front foot down to the ground, tuck the back toes in, inhale, float the back knee, let that back foot come out at an angle. Now with my right foot back, generally for me, toes are at about a 2 o'clock on a clock face, and then bending into that front knee. Remember, ankle, what's happening across the fronts of both ankles? Where is the weight in the back foot? I have my outer arch all the way attached to the floor. Weight is in the back foot as much, or at least almost as much as is in the front foot. As I come into that low lunge to the front, I'm reminding myself to gently keep my pelvis mostly oriented to the front, but I'm not forcing it. There's a difference. Arms can come up if you want to do the arm whole thing. If you don't want to do anything with arms right now with this today, let the arms be. One more breath. Inhale, lengthen the front leg. Coming into pyramid now on this side, I want my back foot forward again. I'm going to slide it in. See, that was a good, this one was maybe a good 8 to 12 inches. Hands are going to come to my hips because then that's going to help me as I remember to keep both hip points mostly oriented towards the floor in a parallel fashion. Front knee is not locked and sternum is reaching rather than crunching over. Once you have your position, and your body will tell you when far enough is far enough, whether that's low back, whether that's hamstring, whatever it may be for you. Once you have that, hands can come to the thigh, to the shin, to a block, whatever works better for you. One more quick little note on that. When we are bringing our hands into some of these positions, sometimes it's just unconsciously that we dump weight into the hands to help support the body rather than having the legs hold all that weight. So just be aware of that you really are wanting the muscle engagement in the lower body for some of these and not dump weight into the upper body to take that tension out of or to take that challenge out of the lower body. Inhale, lift up, coming up to a stand, and then you're going to slide that. I am going to slide my back foot a little bit further back again to come into the high lunge. So dropping so that now this is my right hip, dropping it down towards the ground. Right heel lifted. Lots of opening across the psoas, hip flexor, muscle engagement in that right quad. If you want, you can have arms out in front of you, hands at heart, hands at the hips, arms up if that feels good in your body with the shoulders away from the ears. Muscle engagement here. What's happening with the front ankle of the left foot? What's happening with that left knee? Thinking about, again, you want to encourage it to not drop in towards the big toe side of the foot. Doesn't necessarily have to be super extended out over the baby toe, but keeping it more to the center. Last breath. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, pivot. Now, you're going to have left toes pointed at the short end of the mat, if you're on a mat. Right toes are going to be out to the side. So my right foot, if I were on a mat, is going to be mostly parallel to the back edge of the mat. But for me, I do have my right heel a little bit more out than my toes. My toes are a little bit more forward towards my left foot. Hands on the hips. So torso mostly oriented towards the long edge of the mat. I'm going to bring my left hand inside my left inner thigh. I'm going to bring my right fingertips to the top, right above the outer part of my left knee, so that as I bend in to that lunge, I'm inviting this area above the outside of the right knee to engage. I'm also inviting, with my hand on my inner thigh, inviting that left knee to not fall into the left big toe. I need a little bit more space for my lunge here, so I'm going to move that block and then hold and breathe. Bottom front ribs, tuck down to the top of the pelvis. If I want to spread my wings, arms are out shoulder height. You'll notice shoulders are right above the hips, which slides straight down the center between both feet. Gaze over the middle front finger if you choose. One more breath. Inhale and lift. Hands come to the hips. Then I'm just going to toe heel this back foot forward a little bit until it feels comfortable enough for me to take a big step to the top and have my right foot meet my left. Coming into that balanced position. When I'm in a balanced pose, my supporting knee is not locked out. Locking out that knee, especially in tree pose, can actually inhibit balance, and in some cases, it may lead to injury. So, but either way, locking the knee out, I'm not sure that there really are any benefits. I'd have to research that thoroughly, but I'm pretty sure there aren't. So keeping the knee slightly soft, little bit of bounce to it. Right knee, going to angle that out to the right side. Ankle is going to come, heel is going to come to the left ankle. Toes on the floor, or if you have your block handy and you want the toes on the block, you do that. Or foot at the inner calf, or foot at the inner thigh. You can grow your branches, you can lift your arms, you can bring hands to heart center. If you really want to play around with it and challenge your balance, maybe the hands come around back behind you and you interlace fingers. Whatever works for you. A couple other key points for Vrikshasana tree pose. When you're standing in tree pose, you're wanting to invite the supporting leg, so in this case, the left leg, you're going to want to invite the left leg to press in to the bottom of the right foot as much as the right foot is pressing into the left leg. So sometimes if we just push the foot in, you see what's happening to my left hip? That's going to draw that line of energy out of alignment like I talked about. So keeping the engagement across that thigh so that the thigh is pushing into the right foot is going to also help with that. Also, as this happens, you'll notice what happens in the shoulders. So that will help to keep all of that alignment. Take one more breath. Exhale, please. Drop it down. Shake out the feet, shake out the legs. We are going to make our way down to a seated position now. Checking my notes over here to the side. Let's have you grab, if you have any type of prop that you can use for a strap, you're going to grab that. I'm going to cue both with block and without block. So in any way that makes sense for your body, if you want to go through one more sun salutation, which is the inhale up, exhale forward fold, and then step back into your plank, chaturanga, down dog. If you want to go through one more flow sun salutation, go ahead. If you just want to make your way down to a seat in a safe and comfortable manner for you, do that. So I'm going to use the block first just so I can demonstrate it. So I'm sitting on the block. I'm going to extend my legs out long. And then I'm going to take my right leg. I'm going to either cross it over the left thigh, or if that's not good for you, you can cross it under the left thigh. Now, if you don't want to use the block at all for this and you want to be straight on the ground, you're going to remove the block. Same thing can happen. You can either have the foot under the thigh or you can cross the foot over the thigh. So next is going to be the strap. Because I have my right foot crossed over my left thigh, I'm going to start with my left arm. I'm going to bring it up. You've already done this once today. I'm going to bring that elbow up to the ceiling, drop the hand back behind the skull, and then grab the strap with your right hand. If you don't want to use the strap, drop it out to the side, and then get those fingertips to touch at the back of the spine, lengthening left shoulder up to the ceiling, broadening across the shoulder blades, feeling the length and the spaciousness in the triceps, potentially feeling some opening in the front of the shoulders. You're welcome to stay here. Your next variation is to take an inhale to prepare. Exhale, you're just going to hinge forward any amount for you until generally it's going to be the right outer thigh that's going to give you sensation first. Maybe it's going to be the left hamstring. Wherever your body is saying enough, you're going to stop. Take one more breath here with the hands. As you exhale, gently release, relax, and then if it feels good in your body, round the forehead towards that right shin, getting a little bit of that rounded cascade back happening for this one. In fact, might be a good place if you want to use a prop. You can put a block there. Maybe you rest your forehead on the block. Maybe you put your forearms on the block, anything like that. I'm going to just take another 2 breaths here. And then inhale, lift the forehead first, and then rise up. I'm going to keep the left leg extended. I'm going to take that right foot, I'm going to drop it to the outside of the left leg. Now, if you've had that foot crossed under, perhaps for you it's going to be just an easier transition to keep the foot inside the leg, inside, outside leg, whatever works better in your body, depending on sensation, depending on transition time. Inhale, extend the left hand as if you're going to shake somebody else's left hand. And then perhaps you hook the right knee and the left elbow, or grab it with the hand. Release the right hand down either towards the right hip or back behind you. Get yourself a little bit of a pivot in the back and a twist towards the back. For some folks, there might be an opportunity to need a little bit more sensation for this. If that's you, this is where you will tuck the left foot back towards the right hip. Right heel is along the left thigh or towards the left hip. And then perhaps that gives you a bit more space to twist into the position without forcing. And this is another position where you want to have equal weight between right sits bones and left sits bones. If your right sit bone is coming way up off the ground like this and you can twist further, it's kind of defeating the purpose again. So you want to keep that pelvis and sacrum as kind of your primary alignment piece before you move in. Last breath here. Exhale, release, unwind. Shake out the legs, extend them long. Grab your strap again if you don't have it already in your hand. Now, right leg stays extended, left leg. You're going to either cross over, and if you're on the block, all of the same thing applies. So either left ankle over or left ankle under, right leg. This time, strap comes in the right hand. Reach that right arm up, bend the elbow, grab the strap from behind you, or drop the strap altogether and grab opposite fingers. And breathe. Both sits bones equal weight. Elbow reaching up to the ceiling. Crown of the head reaching towards the ceiling without jerking that chin up. We're not trying to create extra tension in the cervical spine, just keeping length along the entire spine. From here, exhale. If you want to keep the hands together as you're doing that little bit of a hinge, and if you don't want to do the hinge forward at all, if you've got plenty enough sensation without doing the hinge, don't do the hinge. No need for it. The hinge is only useful if it's releasing tension or creating more spaciousness in the body. Once you've had a couple breaths there, if and when you're ready, you're going to release the hands. And for anyone, if and when you're ready, you want to just cascade that spine forward until the head can hang a little bit heavier. And then breathe 2 lengthened, extended, deeper inhales and exhales. Eventually inhaling, forehead lifts first, rest of the spine gently rises. This is where that left foot is going to come to the floor, either inside or outside the right leg. This can be done if you're seated on a block as well. And then inhale, extend the right arm, shake that person's hand, either right wrist and hand or right elbow is going to hook the left knee. And then left hand to the hip or back behind you. This is a really good one to pay attention to the breath and feel the massage that the internal organs are getting from that thigh that's being hugged across the abdomen with the breath, with each breath cycle. Those internal organs get a bit of a massage. If you want to tuck that right foot back, you can. Last breath. Exhale, release, unwind, untwist. If you've got some sort of, this is like a half mini bolster type thing, a rolled up mat, a rolled up blanket, or a firmer rolled up beach towel can be really good for this too. Or if you don't need or want a prop, you're not going to have a prop. This is one more way to open up the fronts of the shoulders. We've done cow face arms a couple different times today, which was this one. We've also done some of that shoulder mobility. This is one more to open up the front of the chest that I talked about before we started. So if you're going to use a prop, you're going to line it up so that the end of the prop sits close to the tailbone, maybe not exactly at the tailbone. For right now, I'm going to lay back with my legs kind of in this easy cross-legged pose, and then I'll adjust them from there. You can have your legs in any position. If it's better for you, depending on your low back, to come to the side and then roll onto the prop if you're going to use one from there, that's an option. If just walking yourself back, I need to hold this one in place. I can see it's going to want to walk. I'm going to lie the length of my spine along the entire length of the prop. I want to make sure that the back of my skull is supported by the prop. If the back of my skull is hanging off the prop, especially if it's more than even just like an inch or so, that creates a lot of torque and tension on the cervical spine. If it's feeling great in your body and it's a really good opener for the front of the throat chakra, fine. But for most of us, we want the back of the head supported in this pose. Actually, this is feeling kind of good. So I'm just going to bring the bottoms of my feet together, get a little bit more of a hip and groin opener in this one. If you want to lengthen the legs out long, you can. And then hands, you're just going to let those arms come open, palms up. And you'll notice I have quite a bit of space between my side ribs and my upper arms. That's going to allow that broader opening and expansion across the front of the chest and the collarbones. I'm imagining that my shoulder blades are melting down towards the ground over the prop. Hold and breathe. Continue to stay where you are in that physical position. Continue to let the breath flow. I'm going to ease myself up while you stay where you are and come to a seat. So a few options from here. If you are feeling like this position, this supported fish pose, is a really great position for you to maintain and stay in for final rest, Shavasana pose, go ahead and do so. If you only want to stay there for maybe a few more rounds of breath and then come into a different position, this is going to be your cue to start thinking about that transition. As you come into your final rest position, you can do flat on your back, what is considered more the traditional. If you do better lying on your belly, if you want to lie on either side, if you want to come to a seated position, especially if you can be seated up against a wall, so the length of the spine is supported, that can be a great final rest position. And if you are seated and you want to be on a prop for the hips, that's another option. So go ahead now, take the next 2 to 3 cycles of breath to make your transition. And then settle into your final rest. So for your final rest pose, notice what you notice. We're going to just reverse from when we started with our centering. Notice what you notice for your energy level. If you feel utterly depleted, let that be data for the next time you practice, so that as you move through the shapes, if you start to be aware of that energy level dwindling, you back off enough to give the body a pause so that you are finishing as or more energized than when you started. Second, notice the mind. Notice both the quantity in the mind and the quality. What I mean by that, do you notice, is the mind a little bit more still or less full of rambling, chaotic thoughts than when you started? The other piece of quality is, are you noticing a little bit more equanimity, a little bit more acceptance, non-attachment? If you're noticing judgment, that's data. Again, so the next time you practice, notice if you are able to go through each shape, experience what you experience, feel it in a way that is the safest physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetic for you at that time, without judgment, without self-condemnation, but with pure compassion, empathy, grace, appreciation, and gratitude for yourself and for the practice. Notice the breath. Generally, our breath is either the or one of the most accessible entry points for modulating our energy. Our energy being that combination of our mental and emotional bodies, along with all of the environmental and social aspects. Often, the breath as an entry point to modulate that energy is one of the most accessible opportunities for us. Keeping that breath flowing, lengthen inhale, extended exhale, maybe a count or two longer than the inhale. That is an opportunity then for all of the internal organs, the lungs and the heart, to become coherent together. As the heart becomes more rhythmic, more steady in its beats, it is then becoming more coherent with the nervous system and the brain. Letting that breath guide the process. And then finally, notice what you notice with the physical body. Same as with all of the other layers of our being. This is without judgment. This is not the narrative of I'm not strong enough for that, or that didn't look right when I did it. There is no looking right or looking wrong. It just is what it is according to each body's alignment and each body's access points at that time. Take another 2 breaths. And then I'm going to invite you to take 2 more breaths. This time, really think about inhaling, lengthening that inhale, maybe even a little bit more sip of breath when you think that it's lengthened enough. And then an open mouth sigh if it feels good on the extended exhale. Do it again. Lengthen inhale. Let that exhale flow out and ease. And gently and slowly at your pace, start to bring small movements into the fingers and toes. Let that movement move into the wrists and ankles, elbows and knees, maybe into the hips and shoulders, so much so that you can come into a long full body stretch, reaching hands above the head, fingers and toes reaching away from the midline, if that feels good for you. And then if you are in any type of seated prone position or supine, you're going to help yourself gently, slowly, patiently up to a comfortable seat. When you're in that comfortable seat, take a pause. Hands can either be palms down on the knees. You can bring palms and layer them over the heart, or one hand at the heart, one at the belly. Or some folks like to bring palms together, and base of the palms comes right at the base of the sternum. If you want eyes closed, you can. Take a lengthened inhale. Exhale over the chin. Om Shanti. Peace. Thanks so much for practicing. If you go through this video more than once, you may want to alternate so that if you feel like you're spending a lot more time holding the shapes on the right side the first time through, when you go through it the second time, start with the left foot forward first so that you can maybe get a little bit more balance if there was more time spent one side than the other. Let me know how it goes. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.